Okay, so we'd like to start by just acknowledging the fact that we're standing here today on the Wurrunga people's land, and we acknowledge their and pay our respects to the elders past, present and those in the future. And we also acknowledge the fact again that it's NAIDOC week. Can you get out your mobile phones and make sure you're on the internet? We've just got a little activity to start us off. So it's really important to understand the research that we have carried out actually is not done in Muslim schools, so it's important for us to understand what you know about bullying before we can actually go on. So if you've got your mobile phones out, if you can type into your search engine www.menti.com, and we're not on the screen. menti.com.au, and then once we're up there we should have a code. No, it's not working? Okay, we won't waste any more time on it, it's fine, that's okay. So what I want to know is, what do you know about bullying? So if you can just throw some words at me. What is it? Sorry? Yes, absolutely. So power plays out in a lot of different ways, isn't it? So it can be a bigger person and a smaller person, it can be 10 of me and 1 of you, and it can be popularity, I'm popular and the person that I'm bullying is not. So yeah, absolutely, Dylan.
Degradation?
Degradation, yes. Yes, absolutely. Control, yep. Which sort of links to the power, doesn't it? Yeah? No, it's good. What else?
Insecurity.
Okay, so now thinking about your own context, hands up, yes, if there's bullying that you are aware of in your own context. A few hands, okay, good. Just gives us a bit of a feel as to, as I said, because our research is not done in that way. Think about a child who persistently bullies. Can you think of anyone in the school who just engages in bullying behaviour no matter what we do? Can't think of anyone? Yeah. So main things in terms of what the research tells us is bullying has 3 components. So power imbalance, Dylan, absolutely 100%, and the other things that we've said as well, but it also has to be repetitive. So it's that ongoing behaviour, and it wears the victim down and gives the bully more power, and also there is an intent to harm, so it's deliberate. I don't want to focus a lot on that, but there was a study done in Canada. 871 students were involved in this research, but the people that we're really interested in is the 9.9% that were consistently bullying at very high levels. In Australia, we think it's around about 5%. Small number, highly problematic. Okay? It's not just a school problem. It's a community problem, because what we know is that kids that actually engage in bullying behaviours at school at a consistent level go into society and are actually violent. So our boys, you can go to the next one. Our boys tend to engage in violent crime that then sees them incarcerated a lot of the time. And our girls tend to move into dating relationships that are violent. So if they bully at school, they move into dating relationships that are violent. So it's not just a school problem, it's a community problem that needs to be addressed. The outcomes that Deb just showed just a minute ago, don't want them for any of our students. What we do know is the interventions that we employ, most of them are around the Tier 1 and Tier 2 stage of intervention. They're actually pretty successful with the majority of students. But we've got that 5%, that 9%, depending where you are, right at the top there, that they don't. It doesn't matter what we do, they just keep bouncing back at us. So they're the kids that we're interested in.
So I'm not sure about your life, where I was speaking to someone during the break how their life is just cruising along beautifully, and I admire that. It's wonderful. But for a lot of our young people, their lives are all full of challenges, and they get so many different challenges, and then there's lots of supports that come in and out. And so with life, that's how life presents for all of us, and it's how we deal with that. So we've been really interested in focusing on these young people who are persistently bullying and being either victims of bullying, their sisters, those that can start bullying and can stop. So we're really interested in all those notions of how do we know more about the different challenges and the different supports that influence young people. So there are, this is the really race job of our focus in our research has been very much on turning points. So there's a lot of literature that talks about turning points in people's lives, and it's very much within the resilience framework. And it talks about having a whole series of risk factors that keep cropping up in people's lives, and then that can either positively or negatively influence people during different time across different contexts within those spaces. So there are the three categories of turning points that Rutter points our research to. Those that either shut down or open up different opportunities, and any changes in your own environment that might happen. So there might be significant issues that crop up, or it can be any sort of change to do with influencing a young person's self-concept. So when you have a whole series of these different turning points all the time, it leads into a chain reaction that follows. So we're quickly going to talk about a case study of our research, which really wanted to explore, and it builds on the two presentations before, about really understanding the lived experiences of young people, particularly those who are really influenced by bullying in some shape or form. And so we're going to actually talk to you about, share some stories of three people. And the way that we started these conversations was about this mind map about your life. And what was placed on the table in front of them was this map, and people could start talking anywhere in their life, any stage, so that it just opened up a discussion and was led from them. So we're going to start off with Brooke's story.
So that's just a reflection from Brooke. You know, you can read in her words, and she was actually relentlessly bullied right throughout her school life. Started very early, and right through her life, it continued. So just a quick snapshot, 23 years of age, she was a pre-service teacher and came in to have her interview with us and to talk about her times. Very, very traumatic times for her. You know, I mean, she was 23 years of age, this happened when she was at school, and yet she cried throughout the entire interview when she recollects exactly what it was like for her. So let's have a talk about her in terms of her turning points. So Brooke started school very happy, loved school, thought it was absolutely great. However, around about year 4, her dad came out and disclosed the fact that he was homosexual. Now, they lived in a very, very small country town. Homosexuality wasn't even spoken about. It was in the cupboard and it wasn't spoken about. So she became the centre of gossips and rumours around the school. At the same time, the parents' marriage broke down, making her different again. Her brother was in a near-fatal car accident, so they had to come down to Adelaide. So that really disrupted any friendships that she had. So it made her, one, very different, and two, she lost connection with her friends. Because of the issues around what was going on for mum and dad, she then, at 9 years of age, became her brother's carer. So she taught her brother how to walk and talk, but that's not the sort of a life a 9-year-old has. So again, she was really, really different. And the bullying happened, and it was persistent because of the fact that she was different. So she got to high school, and her peers and herself understood what it meant to be homosexual. So she was going to go out of her way to stop this bullying by actually acting really promiscuously. And guess what? The bullying got worse, and it got worse. So all of these things were out of her control, so the turning points were out of her control and led to this persistent, ongoing victimisation. She needed a positive turning point to come into play, and thankfully it did. She actually joined the local church, where she gained a sense of belonging. She had some reprieve from the bullying and acted as a protective mechanism for her. Thank you.
So quickly talking about Samantha, she was also one of our pre-service teachers. And in Samantha's life, she experienced lots and lots of transitions from schools, and one of those significant transitions was going from a large government school into a co-educational Catholic setting. And that transition into a faith-based context really gave her a real significant community feel, and that's what she really hung on to as significant in her life. She was really proud of her achievements academically, and she really had close relationships with her peers and whatever. However, when she first started schooling, her and her friend just engaged in persistent bullying throughout, right up until about year 2, 3. And then there were these different turning points around her friendships, having really close relationships with her parents, and her parents really scaffolded talking through how her behaviours impacted on other people. So it was really significant about having the close relationships, building her self-concept and self-awareness around the impact of her behaviours, and having empathy for other people. So again, it's about what causes people, what are those turning points that we can put in place within education and in our social settings to potentially they could go on and persistently bully and get worse and worse, or how do we use the turning points and that awareness to actually address some of the issues. Yep.
So now we'll talk about John. So John engaged in persistent bullying right from the get-go, pretty much right from the year 1, year 2 stage. He recollected when he came to the interview, he recollected at 26 years of age, that he never ever had a friend. How sad's that? Like, never had a friend. So for him, he actually started school. I'm going to move on. He started school, and the turning points were around him being socially rejected. So when he started school, little 5-year-old, he was bigger than all the other kids, and so he was different again. So he was bullied, but only for a very short period of time. Because what he actually learned was, because of his size, if he laid on the floor and let the other kids beat him up, then that interaction was some interaction, and that's better than none at all. So he actually started to learn that that behaviour got him an interaction. So he started to change. Adding to that, he had peer relationship difficulties, as I said, but his mum was also a teacher. So every time she got a new contract and moved schools, so did John. So John never had the chance to make friends, nor did he have the practice ground to be able to practice the social skills he actually needed to keep friends. So that put him at a distinct disadvantage. The second turning point really centred around his lack of belonging. So when John spoke about what was important for him, he spoke about friendships, belonging, he just wanted to be accepted. But he also spoke about identity. So if you think about bullying, for him, he actually got those things. So he bullied someone else, he got the acceptance that he wanted, but it also gave him a reputation of being the bully and being trouble. So he was expected to always do the wrong thing, and he was expected to bully, to the point where he would go into the headmaster's office and the work was already sitting there for him. So that self-fulfilling prophecy set itself up. So I'm going to raise a question to you about, if a child like John engages in bullying behaviour and it's actually meeting their social goals for him of belonging and getting some acceptance, and also meeting his need for identity, then why change?
So just in summing up, we're really wanting to share just these stories, just so we consider all the different sort of roles that are playing out, whether they're bullies, victims, bully victims, desisters, or a bystander within all of those, and to really be thinking around what are the protective mechanisms, what are the key turning points within them. So some of the implications for all of us are really exploring how do we access the realities and the real voices and the lived experiences? How do we do it respectfully within all those, in the processes that we're doing? It's all about how do we use inclusive approaches within our settings that are really fostering social skills and social respect and a sense of belonging. We're also really focused within our School of Education, led by our site team, around, the culturally religious and responsive pedagogies that we can be applying in all our practices, whether it's teacher training or whether it's in our school sites and our research. And just to really value people's life worlds, the richness that they bring into our settings. And we really think it has to be whole school approaches, initial teacher education. It has to be that holistic joined up where we're all working together, because we're just open to learning from everybody and valuing life worlds.
And I think on top of that too is that, you really need to co-design with the students, because they know this stuff better than we do. It's a bit like, we said to you at the beginning, what's bullying? Well, I mean, that would be the first question I'd ask a student. What's bullying to you? Because it might be very, very different to what I think it is. So that would be a starting point. So the provocations that we're going to leave you with is what role does faith-based context actually play in terms of supporting people and giving them positive turning points in their lives. You heard with Brooke and you heard with Samantha that the faith-based environments were really supportive and really helped them. So what role can they play? And in your own context, what protective mechanisms can you actually put in place to help those kids that are engaging in persistent bullying, to help them stop, remembering that the outcomes for those kids are really bad? And how do we support those that are persistently victimised? What are we doing to be able to support them, and how do we empower our bystanders so that they can actually stand up and do something for us? Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Deb. I know we're running low on time. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to have some time for some questions. So if I could ask the presenters, I'll grab some chairs, and I'll ask the presenters to come to the front, and we'll have time for about 3 questions.
Keep saying how we can help as a religious leaders to try to keep our young students, keep them safe, and explain for them or help them how they can avoid bullying from a religious point of view, and from as well like culture point of view as a citizen, Australian citizen. So I believe he believes that it's a very important approach for the whole society to work together, so we can avoid this bullying thing that is growing very fast in our society.
النقطة الثانية، ازاي ما اخدش كوبي رايت من هذا البحث الخطير وانا عايز اعالج الظاهرة، لازم يبقى عندي ريسورسز اعتمد عليها.
And he said that how it's copyright, and he would like to help, and it's copyright, so I can't take any of this presentation. So please, if it can be available, so we can help through what you just presented now. Thank you.
So maybe I'll ask each of us to comment on that, because I think we had multiple connections. So I think just to summarize, the question was, how can the religious leadership of our community support it? We'll start at the end and across.
It's a big question, and it is a big problem, and I understand that. But I think there's been a lot that's been said around, we certainly believe in co-designing. So that's co-designing not just with children, but it's co-designing with leaders and with the community. I think it is a community problem that we need to address. I think, I can't remember your name, but I mean, some of the stuff that you were talking about the curriculum and othering through the curriculum, I think that needs to be addressed as well, and I think that contributes to bullying as well. So it's a big problem, and I know, it is a big problem.
I just reinforce that in all our different roles and capacities. So for us in teacher training, we need to lead by example, and it is around how we have those really culturally responsive. Our curriculum has to be addressed and analysed, and that's what we're doing at the moment, because we lead the sort of the attitudes that our new teachers coming through, and that has that flow and effect. So I think it's about each of us taking personal responsibility for the roles and the people that they're influencing, and we bring all those different roles together with actually an approach.
Thank you for the question. So I think when we're talking about the role of religious leaders and bullying in schools, like to think about it as it's not separate to the struggle against Islamophobia. So it's about how are we fighting Islamophobia as Muslims, and what is Islamophobia in the first place? So once we agree sort of that it's about structural racism, institutionalized racism, then education is just one side where Islamophobia is reproduced. And so it doesn't need to be like some kind of separate single issue battle. Actually, they're all interconnected, like with the struggle against structural racism and white supremacy.
Thanks, Lucy. I would go on and add to that by saying that it is part of a broader remit to counter Islamophobia. And apart from education, we talk about media, we talk about leadership. I think there's a role for religious leaders to lead by example in co-opting the voices of broader community as well. So specifically in the Muslim community. So for leaders to hear the voices and include the voices of young people and voices of women in their decision making, in their leadership. Because when they exclude them for a host of reasons which has happened historically, they're actually reinforcing the kind of divisions that society puts against Muslims. So when we exclude women and young people because we think their voices aren't as important or have equal weight or have equal representation on platforms, I think that's reinforcing bias that should be unpacked, and leaders have a responsibility to walk the talk and lead by example.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Really quick one, if that's okay. Thanks.
This is just a quick question for Tasmeen Sherpa. Yeah, she'll be on it. Just in regards to the work that you're doing specifically with certain students at schools in which you're invited to present, I was just wondering, how do you engage in conversation with the youth about the differences in the navigating between culture and religious perspectives, and do you find when you engage in those conversations that students develop an appreciation that the two are not necessarily synonymous, or are they pretty much set in their own perspectives? It depends on the cohort of students that I'm speaking to. Depending on what school I'm going at, for example, if it's now a suburban school, there might be a very diverse, rich cohort of students from different cultures there. And I've often done, I guess you could say, workshops or little group activities where I try to highlight that culture is actually an asset, not a liability. I'll make people stand up and say, how do we speak more than one language? Or I'll try to watch the locate and centre cultural diversity as a massive strength in particular, which is something that kids I never bring up. They never bring it to school because they're embarrassed. They think that's going to be a slight against them if they talk about the fact that they speak three other languages, they have a different faith. So I try to pivot it around. Often it's at the expense of the mainstream students becoming the minority in those instances, but it's just to highlight the fact that, and I think Christine mentioned it, we've been socialised into an education structure that privileges mainstream and ignores the reality of the diversity and the richness of minority voices. So I try to flip that and make them the dominant one, even if it's for one workshop in one class at one time.
Thank you. We've got time for one last question. We'll go with this one, and then inshallah we'll have time during the lunch break to continue the conversation.
Thank you for that presentation. Just a sort of more broader response. Bullying is often, as you highlighted, a result of family trauma and insecurity and things like that. Just for the panelists, how important do you think is the role of counsellors and or counselling training for religious teachers in the faith-based context in our schools? And just for Tasmeen also to add on to it, or anybody else in the panel, in response to Islamophobia, which is a form of bullying, is there a risk that without appropriate counselling that there could be a turn to something which is a reaction to that, as bullies often do, a turn towards extremism, in some ways in the same attitude towards bullying, to get power back and get control back? What's your opinion about it, and how should schools address that?
So yeah, the argument is made in the literature about, you know, radicalization of Muslim youth and things like this. But I think it's also important for us to think about, you know, how these issues actually, when we don't address them, then we're actually taking away the right to be a radical as well, not as a violent extremist, but also, you know, as I was presenting, the right to say, you know, like to comment on the privileging of suffering and how some people, you know, their grief is more accepted and some, you know, massacres are not grieved at all in society. So, you know, to be able to hold space for those kinds of conversations is a form of counselling and is a form of nurturing as well. So when this silencing does occur, then that does lead to trauma. So when we talk about trauma, we need to link, you know, the political with the personal in a really like deep way, and that's how we can actually, you know, make a case for the importance of criticizing what is going on in the classroom and the ostracization of Muslims through the construction of them as a suspect. So I think that actually has a huge impact on Muslim youth, you know, when you continuously, and we see with CBE at the moment, like in the UK they have Prevent, and in Australia they're trying to do the same as well. And we don't have that as much here yet, but already Muslim youth are afraid to be able to express themselves in class. And so to consider those repercussions.
Thank you. I'm going to just address your counselling question. And that's a really interesting. Everyone needs someone to reach out to and have access to that. I suppose the real richness we need to be thinking about is what are their skills? And we all have different people that we gravitate to. And it's also an issue of a lot of the time in busyness of school, I go and see somebody and then that will be fixed. So I think it's challenging. We need support individually, but we also need to all have responsibility for supporting the well-being of all young people. And who are they going to reach out to and feel comfortable? So we all need training. Everyone continues to learn, and there will be different contexts and skills. So it's about everyone being trained and understanding and supporting.
Yeah, well, we'll add to that. The only thing I will add to that is it's really, we actually counsel victims quite well, and we're pretty good with our bystanders. It's our bullies. We don't touch the kids that bully. We tend to ignore them because they're often quite difficult. So I think that there's counselling that needs to be done there. Yes, training absolutely needs to happen, but it's about listening to them and trying to support them in what is quite a nasty pathway for them as well, rather than just say no, that.
Just really quickly, say that skilling up the counsellors to deal with Islamophobia experiences is important, but it's kind of a moot point if counsellors are providing solace to students when teachers are reinforcing Islamophobic narratives in the classroom. So curriculum training, cultural competence training for teachers I think is paramount because, as Steve mentioned, what teachers say often flies as gospel, for want of a better term, in the classroom setting. And if we don't nip that in the butt, corrected, then it becomes a circular logic of creating a Islamophobic environment in the classroom and sending the student off to a counsellor to counsel what they were taught. Yeah.
Please join me in thanking